Hi Bees! Welcome back to Be or Not to Be with Michelle and Austin. So B, what's the buzz?
Well, B, we're actually going to start a new segment in the podcast. And before we forget, I'm going to get my announcer voice on. This is our first installment to our new series, Tea with Honey. In this series, we are going to review nostalgic movies from the past. At least once a month, we're going to watch, discuss, and share our thoughts for some of our favorite movies from our childhood. What movie are we watching today, B?
Well, B, we're watching Mean Girls, the iconic movie that 90% of us most likely know, grew up with, and have quoted ourselves.
Any millennial has probably watched it, and if not, then you're like living under a hard rock.
Then you're very innocent and sheltered, I would say.
I don't want to say the inappropriate joke I was about to make. We're not going to get into it. All right, so with the movie review, we're going to be reviewing it, but we're also going to be asking two separate questions. What are those questions, B?
So the two questions that we're going to focus on is, does this movie hold up in today's culture? And second, do we still like it? If not, why?
Mm-hmm. And I think like our younger selves definitely had a different interpretation of like all the movies we're going to watch.
Oh, yeah, especially in the generation and that time that we grew up in. And you know, I say it like it was 20, 30 years ago. No, it was only 10 years ago.
Our underdeveloped minds really went through a transformation, though. So, do you want to give a quick summary of like what Mean Girls was?
Totally. So, a quick summary of this movie for the very few and most likely innocent people who haven't watched it. This movie follows Katie Heron, played by Lindsay Lohan, who goes from being homeschooled and innocent to the jungle world of public school. Katie befriends Janice and Damon, who help her to survive high school until she meets the Plastics, the popular girls of the school. One thing leads to another, and Katie falls into good graces with the Plastics, something that doesn't happen too often, and soon realizes how her shallow group of new friends earn their nickname.
So just a quick disclaimer, we are about to spoil the entire movie for you guys. So if you haven't watched it and would like to watch it, spoiler free, then maybe turn off the podcast, pause it, and then come back to us later.
Buzz away and join us again.
Ooh, I like that. All right, so we're going to start the movie now.
The movie begins with the parents of Katie asking her, do you have your lunch money? Do you have your bag? Are you ready for school? And then it zooms out and you see that Katie is a teenager.
Yeah.
About to enter her junior year. And then it's funny because the parents act as if, you know, she's so naive and, you know, there is a bit of naivety to her.
Yeah, I think this also kind of goes into the idea of like being homeschooled the entire time. They're just being really worried parents. And
yeah.
It's just like, it's a really funny thing because I didn't even think about that when I was first watching the movie. Like, I guess it never really registered to me because I watched the movie when I was really young.
Mm-hmm.
So when it was like, when they're talking to her about baby talk, I was just like, oh wow, they really are treating her like a child. But that, not like a child as in she's like immature, but as a child because she's naive.
Yeah.
So interesting stuff.
And then after that, it was really funny because she lives right across of the school, and then she turned around and says bye to her parents, and then she almost gets hit by a yellow bus.
Future foreshadowing opportunity.
And then after that, we get into Katie entering the school grounds, and to her, because she grew up in Africa and her parents were zoologists, she kind of sees the world a little differently.
Mm-hmm.
And as she enters, she's like, high school was comparable to like the jungle world.
Yeah. So I think it's also really interesting because I just had this like thought in the back of my mind, like the reason people got casted was because they can specifically act like animals at any given moment and then just jump back into like school.
Right. Go from reality to jungle world to reality.
I want to imagine like audition going like, oh, okay, so you're a normal student, you're a backup, you're just in the background, and all of a sudden you're a monkey. And then you just have to like jump in. Anyways, so we go to the homeroom scene now. Mm-hmm. Miss Norbury gets introduced.
Right, Tina Fey.
Katie can't find a seat because she doesn't know where to sit. And then she ends up sitting behind this kid who apparently farts all the time. Yeah.
So not the best seat in the classroom.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, she spills coffee on her teacher by accident, and if she gets introduced as, apparently we have a new kid from Africa, and it's interesting because the camera and everyone's attention zooms in on the only African American girl in the classroom, and she's like, I'm from Michigan.
Which is also kind of interesting too, because where did she actually go to transfer to schools? What state was it?
I don't know.
Because like that just shows that there's a lot of transfer students in this public school.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's besides the fact. We also get introduced to Janice and Damien.
Some key players in this movie.
Yes, but we'll get into this a little bit later. They are not friendly to her in this scene. Mm-hmm. They're a little bit colder.
They kind of see her as something abnormal.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know what to do with her, so they're just like, oh, you don't want to sit by him, he farts.
Yeah,
that's like basically it. They watch her from far.
Yeah. So we go to the lunchroom scene next, and Katie doesn't know where to sit.
No one is like letting her sit with her. Like she's looking at like the tables, and everyone's giving her like this weird look, like, are you gonna sit here? Like, you shouldn't sit here.
Jumbo.
Oh my god. So because, she's naive and she grew up in Africa, she sees a table with
those the hot black kids, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And then she goes up to him and is like, Jumbo, and they're like, what are you saying? So she obviously feels that something's like wrong and amiss. Mm-hmm. So after that she cuts like that stereotypical scene in movies where the kid eats in the bathroom.
Yeah, it was a pretty depressing scene.
But that's interesting. Have you, like, is that a real thing?
I don't know. I think, like, in our high school, it was just, like, you found your clique pretty quickly. And if not, like, we always could take out our lunches and we could just eat on the benches or something.
Right.
Like, I don't think we had to resort and eat in the bathroom. But why wouldn't you just eat in the hallway, if anything? Like,
right. Or a classroom.
Yeah.
Okay, so that basically sums up Katie's first day. Yeah. So when her parents ask her, how was her first day? She just
straight up ignores them
because it just wasn't a good day.
Yeah.
So the second day of school, Janice and Damien befriend her.
Yeah, this was kind of an abrupt thing too, right? Because yesterday they were acting super cold to them, and then today all of a sudden it's just like, oh, I love your hair color. This is the color I want.
Yeah, and then Katie, she's not gonna say no to people talking to her. Mm-hmm. So she asks them for, like help, like, oh, so can you show me where the building is for my health class? And they look over her schedule and they're like, oh, your health class is in the back building. Uh-huh. So after the homeroom period ends, I guess, they take her to the back of the school where there's no building. And she's like, oh, so where's the back building? And Janice is like, oh, it burned down a couple of years, or in 1980 something, whatever. And then she's like, oh, and Katie being innocent and naive, she's like, oh no, I'm skipping class. Like,
are we gonna get in trouble for this?
Right. And Janice says, why would we get you into trouble? Mm-hmm. We're your friends.
Yeah. So, yeah, this is also the scene that we get introduced to the plastics.
And who are the plastics?
Oh, girl. So we first get introduced to Karen Smith, the dumbest girl you'll ever meet. Also, I want to allude to the fact that she was just clapping her hands and all of a sudden the basketball just hits her boobs.
Which, as a girl, like, that hurts. So, and she was like she was not fazed by it at all.
She just like laughed a little bit. We also have Gretchen Wieners, whose dad invented toaster strudel. She also knows everything about the school. That's why her hair is so big, because she knows all the secrets. And then finally, we get introduced to the queen bee herself.
The real queen bee. Regina George.
Of course. And she is described from Janice as a soul-sucking leech.
Yeah.
Something like that. There's a lot of nicknames.
Intense words.
Yeah. She alludes to the fact that that Regina George spread a rumor about her, but we don't know what it is yet. And we'll find that out a little later. Mm-hmm. So the next scene cuts to Janice drawing out her diagram.
Yeah. She being, Katie's friend, draws out kind of like a map to help be her guide throughout like the school day. Draws a list of the cafeteria and who sits where. So she basically introduces all the cliques, and she starts, or this is out of order, but basically the cliques include the sexually active band geeks, the cool Asians, the unfriendly black hotties, girls who eat their feelings, girls who don't eat anything, the coolest people you will ever meet, cue Janice and Damien, mm-hmm. AV jocks and preps. And then finally, in the middle of the lunch circle,
Yep.
is the plastics.
Yep, the worst people you'll ever meet.
Janice's words.
So we then get introduced to Regina George actually speaking to Katie. Why haven't I met you?
Because as she's walking from like the lunch line to Janice and Damien,
Oh, right.
she catches Regina's attention.
What was it? Jason asked, is your muffin buttered?
Do you want your muffin to be buttered? And then, you know, so basically she's kind of being like bullied in a way.
Yeah.
And Regina, surprisingly,
Steps in
and is like, go away, Jason. And of course she's a queen, so what she says goes.
Yeah.
So after saving Katie, she's like, oh, just sit with us.
Yeah. And then, so we later find out that they want to recruit her into the plastics, and they don't do this often.
As they say, yeah, that this doesn't happen often. We want to invite you to sit with us for the rest of the week.
Yeah. So I guess the next question is like, if it's only the rest of the week, how does she get recruited into the rest of the year?
So I think just by hanging out with them and kind of seeing her, like they decide, oh, you know, like, let's keep inviting her.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense.
And then, so basically after sitting with the plastics and talking with them, Janice and Damien are watching, right?
Mm-hmm.
So afterwards, when Katie goes to like talk with them, Janice like seizes this opportunity and wants to use Katie to spy on the plastics, get their dirty little secrets, and kind of expose them for who they are.
So I think the best thing in the world is that like we don't really know what Janice is like upset at Regina for.
Like why she hates her so much. Even Katie asks her, why do you hate Regina so much? And Janice is like, what do you mean? And she's like, it seems like you really hate Regina.
Yeah.
And Janice is like, yeah, so? I don't get your point.
And we're seeing this entire story in Katie's perspective. So as of right now, Regina's actually pretty sweet.
Yeah, like she was nice. And Katie, she says like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to help hurt Regina. She's been nice to me.
Yeah, she's actually pretty sweet.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Will that be like that for the rest of the movie, B?
I don't know. We'll find out, I guess.
So after that, it cuts from the
lunch scene
to
calculus. Yeah.
Where she meets a couple people.
Yeah, she meets first Aaron Samuels,
who basically plays her love interest.
Yeah, the gay boy in real life. He's gay.
And then we get introduced to some interesting characters, such as Kevin G., who is captain of the mathletes, and Miss Norbury.
As the math teacher.
And the instructor for the mathletes.
Yeah, the teacher rep.
Right.
Yeah.
But right now they're in calculus, and Katie is smitten.
Yeah, she has a big crush on Aaron. Love at first sight.
Basically, yes.
We also later find out that she had another crush on a boy.
When she was like 5 years old and it got rejected. So, you know, she doesn't know like really how to deal with these feelings and how to approach a guy.
Yeah. So, anyway, so we cut to the next scene, which is, I guess, after class. After class. And then we find out that Kevin G wants to recruit Katie because she's a girl and girls will get more money for the team.
Right. And then we, from there, she's like, oh, I'll think about it.
Yeah, and then just leaves.
And then, yeah, just totally leaves him. And then after that, it's another lunch scene. And the plastics, oh, it's Wednesday, B. So what do we do on Wednesdays? Or what do they do on Wednesdays?
They wear pink, of course.
So they're all sitting at the table. They're, like, doing their lunch. And Regina goes to go get something, you know, like in lunch or whatever. And then Gretchen is, you know, she's pretty nosy, so she asks Katie, so has anyone caught your interest yet? And Katie blushes and she's like, oh, well, there's this guy in my math class.
And then Karen is like, who is it?
Oh, is it a senior? And then she's like, oh, it's Aaron Samuels. And they're both like, no.
Exes are off limits. That's Regina's ex.
Girl code. And then what is Gretchen's words? Don't worry. Your secret is safe with me. Yeah. And then after that, I think we all know. We have all heard these words before. Get in, loser. We're going shopping.
One of the most iconic lines in the movie.
Mm-hmm. So they go to the mall, hang out, whatever, and then they go to Regina's house.
Yeah.
And that's where we're introduced to her mom and sister, and it's interesting because I don't know how to feel about the mom.
You know, I think we've discussed this before, like off camera, but basically we have this conflicting emotion because on one hand, you have her spoiling her daughter. She can do whatever she wants.
Right.
No rules. But at the same time, she's a pretty responsible mom in some degree.
Yeah, to some degree.
Yeah.
Because I think for everyone who's listening and who's watched the film, they all know the scene where the mom makes like virgin cocktails for them, and then Katie's like, oh, there's no alcohol in this, right? And the mom, she's like, oh, of course not. What kind of mother do you think I am? But if you want some,
I'd rather you do it in the house.
yeah, like I'll give you some, but I'd rather have you just be safe and drink in the house.
Yeah.
Which, you know, we all laugh at and we're like, ooh, but it's actually pretty like responsible.
Yeah, I would say it's responsible to a certain degree. Like, no parent should be offering their underage friends, or children's friends, like any kind of alcohol.
Of course not. No.
But I think the idea of having them drink in the house is a lot more responsible than saying like, yeah, let's totally just give you like alcohol and
Go off and drink it, whatever.
Yeah.
And it was really funny because so when the mom sits down with them and she's like, so girls,
What's the 401?
411? Like, B, when was the last time you've heard or used 411? And for our younger listeners, kids,
That's information.
411 is like, so what's up? What's the scoop? What's going on? And like, I guess we were too young, but I don't know how 411 originated. We were just born in the time when it was a
like,
thing.
Yeah. The last time I remember 411 being that popular was like Disney 411. Do you remember that? It was like
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
It was like a small section in between shows, and it was just like the 411 was basically anything that was happening within Disney, and you'd usually have like Brenda Song hosting it, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
Pass the plate.
Oh yeah. Oh my god, I forgot about that too. Oh, different time, different story.
Anyways, another important part about this scene is where we're introduced to the burn book.
Mm-hmm.
And the burn book is basically where they take girls' pictures from the yearbook and write mean stuff about them.
Yeah.
So that's the burn book.
So I think, the burn book in general, though, it's not a bad idea. It's kind of like a passive-aggressive way to, like, get your anger out. As long as no one sees it, I don't necessarily think it's that bad.
But it kind of, like, they're keeping it. I don't know. It's mean. I guess it's what people don't know won't hurt them, but like what happens later kind of sets the backlash from doing such a thing.
Yeah.
And
this is also the scene where we find out that Janice, what the rumor was spread about Janice.
Oh yeah, like which Janice was trying to hide.
Yeah.
In the beginning, and apparently, she's called.
We can't say the word,
yeah.
but it's a D word, but it refers to her liking other women, so basically a lesbian.
Yeah, and I don't feel comfortable saying it.
Yeah.
So that's basically, we find out that about, like, like that's what they see her as.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so Katie visits Janice at work, and she tells Janice, oh, they have a burn book.
Yeah.
And Janice is like, oh, well, what does it say about me? And Katie, like, she's innocent, right? She doesn't want to hurt her friend.
Yeah.
So she tells Janice, oh, you weren't in it.
Mm-hmm.
And Janice is like, those bitches.
Yeah. This is like...
She's more offended that she's not in it.
Yeah. This is also a scene. This is a really minor thing, but this is also when we find out about the foot cream, which is going to be later used in future scenes.
Mm-hmm.
So just something else to think about. Oh, also, Miss Norbury working multiple jobs.
Which isn't kind of far from the truth, because we all know, like, teachers, like I know teachers who have to work second jobs.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that, she was working one, it kind of like had like some truth ringing to it.
Yeah, but I did write down in my notes though, like, do you think it's appropriate to talk about like alcohol in front of your students outside of the school, you think?
Oh, because she said she was a bartender?
Yeah.
Well, I don't think she was like telling them to go drink or whatever. It was just another job.
Yeah, okay.
So I think it was fine. And then this part is really important. What happens next is when Regina finds out that Katie has a crush on Aaron. Even though Gretchen said, your secret's safe with me,
Mm-hmm.
Gretchen spills the beans.
Yeah. So this is also done via three-way call.
Oh my god, B, do you remember when, like before FaceTime, before like group messages, which was the most like popular way, like, group messages, which is just so common for us to use to talk to multiple people at once. Three-way calls. What was your first three-way call like?
I don't think I've really had many three-way calls. I wasn't like the most popular in school, so I like had like a couple friends. I think the most I did was like a three-way call for video games or something like that. What about you?
I remember it was sometime in like elementary, middle school. It was me, my sister, who was sitting right next to me but had a different phone in her hand, and our both of our best friend. And we were just talking about anime.
I would imagine you guys just muting when you're like talking about your ships. It's like, she's totally wrong. I do not support Yuki with, I don't know, Serena.
Inuyasha and Kagome, ew.
Anyways, so we start learning that Katie is starting to dumb down herself for Aaron to not impress him, but just start to talk to him.
So sad. No girl should ever have to dumb herself down.
I know. I mean, honestly, this is coming from a gay boy's perspective, but just in general, like a guy's perspective. I feel like intelligence is way more appealing than like...
Do you think you're saying that because you're mature, like you're an adult now? What if you were in high school and what if you're a straight, like, 17-year-old boy?
Okay, so here's my thing. This is my complex right now, because on one hand, I don't like anybody who's stupid. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like I would never like hang out with the Karen Smiths of the group. But at the same time, like, my ego is also telling me, like, I'm smarter than them. I can help them. Like, I can be their senpai.
Be their savior.
Yeah. So I'm like, I don't know what to think about it. I think the dumbness outweighs the fact that my ego is taking over, though. So I think, I mean, as far as friends go, because, I mean, you'd start off as friends dating first, right? So
right.
I feel like you'd probably want to be, like, associated with them as more, like, friends anyways. Mm-hmm. And you don't want to hang out with dumb people, so that's just my thoughts on that.
But it's pretty interesting because I feel like girls, like, why do they dumb themselves down? Is it more to make themselves seem more approachable?
No, I think it's just because they want to appeal to the guy's ego, right?
Totally. That. Yeah. That makes total sense.
I mean, like, I feel, like, really honored when people are stupid. Like, not stupid, but just, like, they don't know something that I know.
And you can just, like, tell them about it.
Yeah, I'm like, well, let me spill the tea for you. Anyways, so,
Katie's, like, building her relationship with Aaron, mm-hmm. and she mentions, like, he borrowed a pencil, yeah. And then the other, so many iconic phrases from here, but she was
on October 3rd. He asked me what day it was. It's October 3rd. It's like one of my most favorite things in the world.
And then, was that the day oh no. So, it just, like, class goes on.
She knows that she can't, like, outright like Aaron, but she can still talk to him. Yeah, so she's building that relationship with him. And
then, so one day, like, it was, like, in October, they're talking, and Aaron Samuels invites Katie to a Halloween party, mm-hmm. his friend's Halloween party, and he's pretty specific, saying it's an invite. Party. Yeah, it's a costume party, and it's an invite for only one person.
So don't bring in a guest.
Yeah, don't bring in, like, some guy. And then, what does she say, B?
Gruel. Oh, wait, I meant to say cool and great at the same time. And
I just said gruel. And he, like, you can tell he's, like, he is pretty interested, because he's, like, gruel.
Yeah. You can tell he's, like, starting to develop a crush on her, too.
Like, there's something mutual.
Yeah.
And then, so basically, Katie being, naive, like, she thinks costume Halloween party, okay, that I gotta look scary, mm-hmm. and she goes as
an ex-wife.
Yeah.
Which is, like, so Aaron approaches her, and he's like, oh, let me guess, zombie bride. And then she's like, in air quotes, as ex-wife, which I don't understand the costume. Like, I understand if it was a zombie bride, but not as an ex-wife.
Zombie ex-wife, probably, not a zombie bride.
But, like, did she say specifically?
Because I feel like because he said zombie something, like, zombie bride, she, like, oh no, not a zombie bride, a zombie ex-wife.
Oh, okay, maybe that's what it is.
But what was super interesting? Like, when she enters the Halloween party, uh-huh. I think a lot of people missed this. I missed this, like, the, 20, 30 times I've watched it in my short life. But,
one for every year of your life.
But, there was a scene where there was two girls kissing each other. And for our listeners, go back, watch as Katie enters into the Halloween party house, and then look, there's two girls kissing each other. And you know, like, I support all love, and it's just interesting that in 2004 they had this scene in there.
Well, this was just because, like, two girls kissing, that's like hot lesbian scenes, like that's like every male demographic, because you notice too, right, like in the background there was also a guy cheering them on. So it's funny because I noticed the guy in the background first, and then I noticed the two girls kissing because the lighting was on him and not on the girls.
Oh, that's right. Like, the girls, like, that's why I think I missed them. Like, you don't see...
Yeah, it doesn't allude
first,
to it.
But I saw that, and the fact that you're pointing out that this guy was cheering them on, like, that's super interesting.
Yeah. So, I mean, 2005 was it 2005? 2004. It was a weird-ass time.
We were 9 years old.
Yeah.
Do we remember what was going on in my life? Oh, I think I was too worried about making the volleyball team.
So anyways, we see Regina start talking to Aaron Samuels.
On behalf of Katie. Like, that's what Katie believes. Like, Regina's gonna tell, you know, like, basically tell him, oh, like, you know, Katie's cool, and kind of, like, be her wingman.
In her mind, it's bushes and daisies.
Yeah.
But
Regina, like, talks smack about Katie, and then, long story short,
they
kisses
get back together.
Aaron in front of Katie, and they get back together, and Katie is devastated.
But okay, here's my question though: is, you know how Aaron was, like, starting to develop a crush on Katie? Why would he go back to Regina?
Because Regina said that, oh yeah, please be nice to her. She's my friend, but she does some weird things. She writes Mrs. Aaron Samuels. She kept one of your tissues. She's gonna do some voodoo magic on it to make you fall in love with her. So as any rational person, like, if I heard someone was doing that to me, I'd be kind of freaked out too.
But I mean, like, how much would you actually believe though? Because she didn't
from, like, an ex that, like, broke up with me.
Yeah, like, it doesn't seem, like, really realistic because he wasn't even, like, believing it.
Remember, he was like, her story said that she came from Africa, so who knows? Maybe they were just playing on that.
That's true. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. Like, they don't know, they're ignorant.
And I feel like Regina's probably, like, a good manipulator, so I feel like she...
I don't know, man. If someone approached me like that, I'd be like, get off of me, bitch. Anyway, so long story short, they're back together.
And then Katie, who's devastated, goes running to Janice and Damien, and she's heartbroken. So Janice seizes this opportunity and says, okay, don't worry, we're gonna get revenge.
Yeah. So they have 3 steps. The first one is take away the man candy.
Yeah, Aaron Samuels.
Yeah, aka Aaron Samuels. Second one is ruin her hot bod.
Yeah, ruin the hot body she has. And then the third one is lose her followers, her faithful followers, aka Gretchen and Karen.
I also wrote down the note on the board that says Army of Skanks, which that's the funniest thing. So that's when they start activating the plan. So what they start doing is something really small. They kind of, like, basically introduce foot cream into them because they're talking about...
Regina was saying, oh my god, my face is breaking out, and Katie's like, oh wait, I have something that can help with that. So her and Janice, they take foot cream and they put it into a jar that's, like, for face stuff, and it gives it to
Regina,
and all it does is give her
a pepperminty smell.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. And then another one, which I thought this was a really interesting scene, is they cut holes in front of on her shirt, like near the breast area, so that her bra shows. And it's funny because I thought this was this was really interesting and cool because Regina, like, after the gym, gym class, she puts her shirt on and realizes, oh, it's cut. Oh well, I'm just gonna keep, like, I'm not phased. Like, who cares? And then all of a sudden, all the other girls follow her lead, and the next day, their shirts are cut by their breasts to, like, show their bra.
Which, I mean, I understand. It's kind of like the social status thing. That's why we see Supreme all the time.
It's probably it's just, like, confidence. Yeah. Maybe that's the key. Like, if you're confident, then that's all you need.
That's all you need to do to survive life, is just you're confident, man. I just imagining going into a work office or like a job interview and you're just like, I'm the most confident person in the world. It's like, you're hired.
If only it was that easy.
Anyways, so they need to go harder. They realize they need to go harder on this because it's not working. It's been months now.
And then Regina thinks she sees Katie talking to Janice, and she's like, oh my god, like, were you talking to Janice? And she's like, oh, and Katie's like, oh no. And basically, it's winter time already.
Yeah.
And Regina says, oh, candy canes? You better get me one, biatch.
Yeah. Also, this is also the scene when Regina is finally telling the story about how her and Janice were friends.
That's right. She reviews the tea. She spills the tea.
She spills all the tea.
Basically, Janice and Regina were best friends in middle school. And then Regina started getting popular. And Janice started getting possessive, like saying, why did you return my call? Like, why are you spending all this time with your boyfriend now?
Yeah.
And which, you know, is justified. Like, I can see that. Like, if my best friend was doing that in middle school, like, hey, why aren't you hanging out with me anymore?
Yeah.
And then, but Regina took that as, you have a lesbian crush on me.
Yeah.
So Regina is having a birthday party, and it's a pool party. And she's like, oh, I couldn't invite Janice because there was girls that were going to be in their bathing suits. And, you know, she was a lesbian. You know, so basically that tore their friendship apart.
Yeah, pretty much. She had to transfer schools, and then she cut off all her hair the next year, and then she came back as a weirdo. And then I guess now she's on crack, which is what she said, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then that's the candy cane part. Katie enacts his plan to crack Gretchen wieners by buying 3 candy canes. One for herself, one for Regina, and then one for, I'm assuming, Karen?
Yeah.
And then everybody but Gretchen wieners in the classics will get it.
So this iconic scene, God, like I say iconic so much because this movie itself is iconic, but it's finally the day where the candy canes are passed around and you have Damien in a Santa Claus costume coming into class and giving the candy canes. And what does he say, B?
Wait, it was 1 for Shane Omen, 4 for Glen Coco. You go, Glen Coco.
Glen Coco, so popular. And do we have a Katie Heron? Oh, it's Katie.
Oh, 1 for you, Katie Heron.
And then he's getting ready to go, and Gretchen's like, oh, and Damien's like, not for Gretchen wieners.
Bye. the best, I want to say that's one of the best scenes in the movie.
Gretchen gets shut down.
Yeah. And then so of course, naturally, she'd be like, who is that from? And then
Katie's like, oh, thank you for being such a good friend. Love, Regina. So after like the candy canes, we get to the really like the
final straw.
The final straw, and that's the Jingle Bell Rock, like the talent show for the school. And they do the Jingle Bell Rock song, and it's like the whole night just collapsed like on Gretchen, because first like Regina last minute tells Gretchen, okay, switch sides with Katie because we're taller girl in the middle, and Gretchen's like, oh, but it's gonna be,
I'm always on your left.
I'm always on your left. And Regina's like, well, you're getting on my last nerve.
Yeah.
So basically, they do the talent show. Gretchen messes it up, and Katie saves the situation. And at the end of the talent or show, what is it? Oh, Kevin G. Basically, what was? Oh, she finds Gretchen and everybody else thinks that they have. Katie has a crush on Kevin G. Because Kevin G just compliments Katie, you know, just casual. And then Gretchen's like, "Oh my God, you're blushing," and Katie's not blushing. Gretchen's just reading into it, and then
that is so fetch.
Stop saying fetch, Gretchen. Fetch is not going to happen. So that was Regina, and finally, Gretchen wieners cracks.
And then we get into my absolute favorite scene in the movie. So, in long story short, I memorized this entire scene at one point. I just can't remember it at this point. But Gretchen wieners writes an essay about alluding to Caesar and Brutus, how Caesar is always the best one, but Brutus should have the opportunity
It's just as smart as Caesar, is just as pretty as Caesar.
Why should we all like Caesar? We should just stab Caesar. Obviously, Caesar being Regina George, and Brutus being obviously Gretchen wieners.
So, like, Gretchen wieners cracked, and Katie finds out that Regina is cheating on Aaron with Shane Omen.
Also, just a little tidbit from the last scene. According to Karen, she dumped Regina originally dumped Aaron for Shane Omen. So there was that little tidbit of information.
So basically, we know Regina's just using Aaron Samuels to get at Katie.
Yeah.
And then what else happens is when Katie is just so, like, hurt that she gives Regina, who's trying to lose 3 pounds, right, on an all-carb diet,
all-carb diet.
Katie introduces these Keltine bars to Regina, and they were used by Katie's mother for, like, the African children to gain weight.
Yeah.
So basically sabotaging the hot body.
Yeah. So that's in session. And meanwhile, they're also trying to get Aaron to catch Shane Omen and Regina George.
But what do they catch instead?
Oh my God. They catch Coach. What's his name? Coach
O'Brien.
O'Brien with Trey Pack.
With Trey Pack.
One of the Asian, the hot Asian girls or whatever.
Yeah.
So. And
then so after that, like, which was so entertaining, it's math class, and as Katie's leaving math class, Miss Norbury hands her test, and she's failing, and Katie's like, what, I'm failing? And her parents need to sign the test. So Katie, she's like, oh, don't worry, I'll take care of this. And then Katie, who is like kind of being two-faced at this point, goes to Regina's house, and she's like, oh my God, Miss Norbury, she's like, I'm a pusher.
I push people. And then she's like, well, was it Regina or Katie who said that she probably pushes drugs?
No, I think it was Gretchen.
Really?
No, it was one of the plastics.
Yeah.
They're like, you mean like push drugs? And she's like, oh, I'm sure.
She says she works 3 jobs.
Yeah. So basically that rumor goes into the burn book. And we'll see what consequences Katie has to deal with.
That's literally Katie's only entry into the burn book.
Yeah.
Which is, like, bizarre to me. Anyways, moving on.
So basically, Katie is kind of like the hot talk of the school at this point.
Yeah, she's becoming more popular.
Yeah.
And Regina's possibly
the hotter version of
Regina George. Yeah. So I want to bring this up. So they're doing cutscenes, and they're talking about how I saw Katie Heron wearing army pants and flip flops, so I bought Katie army pants and flip flops. I want to talk about specifically Mr. Duvall talking, not specifically what he did, but who's interviewing all of these people, because it goes from like all students, and then all of a sudden Mr. Duvall, right? And he's the principal. So who's talking to them, and why is he so open about talking to them? It's like a curious thing, right?
Yeah,
like,
I never thought about that.
Like, that's my question. I was like, yeah, it goes to like every student girl to like Mr. Duvall, and I'm just like, I wonder who he's talking to.
That's a good point, B. I never thought about that.
Unless it's like all just cutaways to people's minds.
And then so as Katie is like morphing into a plastic, Janice invites Katie to her art show, and Katie's like, oh, I'm sorry, I can't because I'm going to Madison with my parents.
Yeah. So all of that ensues. Basically what happens is that Aaron offers to tutor Katie at her house.
Because Katie is quote-unquote failing math.
Also, like, in her mind, like, you just notice that she's always correcting him in her mind. She knows exactly what the answer is, and then she's just like, oh, you're so right. Wow, you're so smart. Blah, blah, blah. And I was just
totally,
like,
as you said, feeding the ego.
I know. See? It's all about feeding the ego, I guess, in high school.
So, it was also this tutoring scene when
Aaron finds out about Regina George cheating on him.
Because, yeah, Katie, like, she realizes when she's starting to word vomit, and so she can't understand why, like, because Katie and Aaron share a kiss, and Aaron puts a stop to it because he's like, no, man, like, I can't do this. I'm dating Regina.
Yeah.
And she's like, why do you like her? Why do you like her so much? And he's like, why do you? And so she's just like so pent up, and she just says, she's cheating on you.
Yeah. And then cut scene to Regina George crying.
I was half a virgin
when I met him. Also, like, what does half a virgin mean?
I don't even want to think about that. So, it's pretty interesting because after this, like Regina is kind of going downhill because she gets broken up with, and then she's putting on weight because of those Caltine bars.
Yeah.
So, after the breakup and whatnot, another three-way call happens.
I feel like three-way calls are the most important keys in the movie.
So what happens here, B?
So basically what happens is that Katie set up this whole plan. I don't even know if she planned to go out with them, but she set up the whole plan for the night in order to sabotage the plastic specifically. So she calls Regina and she's talking about Karen, I think, or Gretchen or something like that. They're talking about the plastics in general. Long story short, Gretchen and Karen are both on the other line.
Yeah.
And they're being muted by Katie.
Right.
So basically what happens is that Regina has to go, but she finds out that... oh no, it was just Gretchen on the other line.
Yeah, and then what is it? Regina makes a comment about Karen being like such a slut.
Yeah.
And then so Gretchen calls Karen and it says, "Oh, I have something to tell you." Because you would tell me if someone was saying something bad about me. So Karen's like, "Oh, what is it?" But before Gretchen can say anything, Regina calls her like, "Oh, hey, let's hang out, but don't invite Gretchen because she's annoying me."
Yeah.
And then so Karen's like, "Okay, hold on, Regina," and then she talks to Gretchen and Gretchen basically says, "Yeah, Regina called you a slut, blah blah blah." And like as any high school girl, like hearing that, it's like, what? My friend called me a slut?
Yeah.
And then, so basically, Karen's like, "Oh, sorry, I can't hang out tonight.
I'm sick.
And then basically, Regina says, "Boo, you whore."
It never clicked into my head.
So it's just like, it was confirmed.
Yeah. It's like, and okay, here's my thing though. For Katie to actually have this plan to work, the stars had to be perfectly aligned.
For them to say this?
Yeah, because just think about anything else Regina could have said. But the fact that Regina confirmed that she called Karen a whore, it just proves that she's definitely talking about her behind her back. And yeah, so...
So basically, the Plastics Gretchen and... Karen, they're kind of had it with Regina and her ways. So the next day is pretty iconic because Regina is wearing sweats.
Yeah.
For the second time in the week, and Gretchen is the first one to point it out. And she's like, "You can't sit with us."
Yeah.
And Regina's like, "Sweats are the only things that fit me," and no one says anything, and she's like, "Well, whatever, you can walk home, bitches."
Well, see, this is also a iconic scene because the fact of the matter was that the rules were really enforced with everybody on the table.
Yeah.
Except for Regina,
who thought she could bend the rules to her favor.
Yeah, because she was the one who said, "Well, those rules aren't really that important."
But Gretchen's like, "It was real when I wore that vest."
No, that was Karen. It was real when I wore that vest, and then the whole thing about the hoop earrings too. Which is
sad. So basically, after Gretchen yells at Regina, Regina spills her lunch, and then she gets mocked by a fellow high school classmate, and so you see her descent from grace, from the throne.
That whole scene just went from uphill to way downhill.
Yeah. So long story short, after that, Katie is the new queen bee, and Katie and Gretchen and Karen are following her around and basically want her to throw a party. So she ditches her parents, Madison, night, whatever.
And she uses an excuse that Janice invited her to the art show
to skip out with her parents so that she can actually throw a party. And so she throws a party, and she's basically throwing the party so that she can talk to Aaron.
Yeah.
But he arrives later, and she thinks he's bailing on her and everything. So she's drinking, and then he's at the party trying to hide from Regina, who is like, "This bitch can't throw a party without me."
I made her.
So Aaron and Katie see each other. She throws up on him. Moment is ruined. He goes, and then as she's outside her house trying to keep him to stay, you see Janice and Damien roll up in their car, and basically, this is their fallout. What happens here, B?
So basically, Janice, one was pissed that Katie was throwing a party and they weren't even invited.
And if anything, she was just mad that she skipped out on her art show.
Yeah.
And basically lied to her.
Yeah.
Janice felt pretty betrayed, I would think, and you said you were going to Madison, but you were just throwing a party. Like, you said you would come to my art show, but you didn't. And what's the thing she says? You don't have to pretend to be plastic. You are plastic.
Cold, shiny, hard plastic.
Yeah.
I remember that.
And actually, it's interesting because this is the only time that Janice calls Katie.
Okay, I never picked up on that, but...
Oh, for background reference, Janice would always call Katie Caddy.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's like a pet name or what, but we'll get into that later.
Yeah. So this is also kind of a breaking point for both of them because not only is Janice mad at Katie for the fact that she wasn't invited to the party, but also because Katie's just denying the fact that she was the one who wanted to become a plastic.
Yeah.
Because Janice was basically saying, well, you know, at least me and Regina, we know we're mean and we admit that we're mean, but you just want to play it off like, what is it? You're like in your own Africa land or something.
Yeah. Playing this naive, innocent role, but you know, you wanted this, and then what's her name? Katie says, well, it's like you're in love with me, and the car slams like to a stop.
Halting point. Oh no, she didn't.
No, she didn't. And then basically it's kind of like an insult to Janice because it's kind of like a replay of Regina.
Yeah, it's definitely, like, she even said, right? Like, she's like, you are Regina, or something like that. You act just like Regina.
A clone.
Yeah. So, basically, Janice gives her the art piece that won an award, and then they just drive away.
And it's like a sweet picture of the three of them when Katie was, you know, like still herself, innocent, and like, you know, like still their friend. And then it's a really bad night for everyone because this is also when Regina finds out that her Kelteen bars, which, you know, are supposed to help her drop weight, is actually what's making her gain weight. So she freaks the bleep out, and basically it's super, actually,
it's probably the most elaborate thing I've ever seen anybody do.
While she's screaming at the top of her lungs.
Yeah, she is honestly the most evil girl I've ever like encountered, and I love it.
But she's really smart.
She's super smart. So basically what happens is she grabs the burn book and she writes out the message. What is it? This girl is a something
stank.
Don't trust this fugly slut.
The fugly slut.
Yeah.
Do not trust her.
And then she, instead of putting a picture of Katie, which I thought was alluding to it, you find out it's a picture of Regina George.
So Regina's putting a picture of herself under those lines, and immediately it cuts to her giving the burn book
to Mr. Duval,
the principal, in an attempt to frame the other plastics for this, to kind of bring them to the bottom.
Yeah. And it's probably it's the best device theme I've ever seen in a movie. It's amazing.
Yeah.
So we cut to the Katie being lectured by the coach about chlamydia, which he spells wrong on the board.
Ironic.
And then they say, oh, Katie Heron, you're wanted in the principal's office.
And basically, the plastics are blamed for it. And during the scene where they're being kind of interrogated, Regina, being the mastermind that she is, continues the evil plan. She took Xerox copies of the books, like what was in the books, and then obviously she's skipping class, so she's distributing like all these copies everywhere.
Yeah, it's thrown every single place.
And as the bell rings, people find out about it, chaos ensues, and she's standing in the middle of it with a smirk and a self-satisfied feeling.
Yeah, so cut to Mr. Duval having to break up the fights in the scene, in the halls. Basically what happens is that everything that Katie was imagining about what high school was in comparison
alluding
with the jungle.
To like Jungle World. It came true.
Yeah, she closed her eyes. She couldn't wake up from it.
So basically, they try to have a group therapy session, and it works for most of them. But then Janice rats out Katie to Regina, saying like, "Oh yeah, we totally planned this, and all of this happened to you because Katie,
Yeah.
like, did all of it.
I thought you were going to say because I had a big lesbian crush on you.
That too. And then so Regina looks at Katie and she's like, she's just so angry. So she leaves the school grounds and she's like crossing the street, and Katie catches up with her and is like, Regina, I'm sorry. And Regina gets so mad and she's like, do you know what people say about you? You're the less hot version of me.
Yeah.
And then, so basically, long story short, Regina gets hit by a bus.
Yeah, she gets hit, and that's how Regina George died.
Just kidding.
No, but she experiences a spinal fracture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And some people think Katie pushed her.
Yeah. Some people think she pushed her. Some others think that, what was it? There was another rumor about her.
Yeah, so basically there are rumors going about. And then, so, like, it's kind of an eye-opener for Katie, and then she kind of starts to revert back to herself after that incident. Mm-hmm. She goes back to sitting behind the kid who farts, like, from the very beginning of the movie.
But do you think that was because she was trying to revert to herself, or because she was being exiled from everybody?
You know, it could be both. It could be both. And then finally, there's a scene where Miss Norbury is getting in trouble because of the rumor that she pushes drugs, and because there was a rumor, which turned out to be true, about
Coach
O'Brien, I think, and Trey Pack, and that was true. So they're just investigating, and Miss Norbury's life is like getting like intruded upon, and Aaron Samuels himself says, whoever wrote that book, these girls were just bored out of their minds and had nothing better to do. And Katie takes the first step to her,
recovery
and process, and admits that it was her in front of everyone. She admits, I did that.
Yeah.
So, and then after that, it cuts to, Miss Norbury's back, and she kind of is like she's really disappointed with Katie, but kind of glad that she came out and said the truth. And basically, the way for Katie to not fail math class is to join the mathletes.
Yep, exactly.
And can you wrap up the ending, B?
So basically, the mathletes tournament is on the same day as a spring fling. And Katie, as obviously for her punishment, before that, she's grounded because she's been failing her classes. So just note that she's grounded from her parents, but she's going out for the mathletes tournament. But her parents think that she's going to the spring fling. Cut to the mathletes tournament, you find out that the other team also has a single girl on the team. The tournament ensues, and you find out that it's a split tie. And in the case of a split tie, each team will choose one team member from the opposite team to compete side by side. And it's a sudden death match. So basically, you will answer, and if you get it wrong, then the other person has the chance to answer, and if you get it right, then obviously you win. So, what was her name? I forget already.
I forget.
The girl. That's
girl. What they called each other.
Yeah.
We picked a girl.
Yeah. We picked a girl from that team too. Anyway, so the girl answers with -1 as the solution for the sudden death match. And it turns out it's wrong. Meanwhile, Katie is just thinking about how they're judging each other, and the fact that they're judging each other isn't going to solve the problem that's in front of them. So she can talk about her lip gloss, she can talk about her glasses,
eyebrows,
yeah,
but that's not going to solve the problem.
Yeah. So obviously this is alluding to the solution of, if you have problems with people, just confront them head on. Anyways, she realizes that the answer is something that they went over in class one time.
As she was staring at Aaron's head.
Yeah, and she finds out the answer is, what's the answer be?
The limit does not exist.
Exactly.
I cannot tell you how many times I've heard this in math class, in science class. Like, this was probably one of the most phrases used from this movie.
I remember was it Alge 2 that happened? Or was it probably pre-calc, I think?
I didn't make it up to pre-calc, so I wouldn't know.
I was in pre-calc, and my math teacher, he was like an old fuddy-duddy, like super old. And so he was telling us like about like different functions and different limits and everything like that. And then he came to the part where it said the limit does not exist. I'm not joking you. Everybody made like a small like... And then immediately after that, everybody just started cracking up laughing. And then my teacher was like, what is so funny? Like, what is happening? The best thing in the world, I
The
swear.
generation gap. That is so funny. If any of you had that experience, please let us know.
Yeah, or just do it in front of your teacher, man. Just laugh, man. Anyways.
But so wrapping up the ending, basically
They win the
mathletes
tournament.
and then Katie gets crowned. They go to the
prom.
the
spring fling.
the party, whatever. And then Katie's crowned, the spring fling queen.
Yep.
And she takes the tiara, breaks it apart because she realizes that, it's just a title. Like, everyone is beautiful. And
It's just plastic.
it's just plastic. So it's a pretty interesting ending because, they all follow their own path. Like, they kind of find a place that's more them, that they can be them. Regina plays sports because she can let out her anger. The jocks weren't scared of her. Katie's back with Janice and Damien. Karen is, doing her own thing.
Weather reports, and then Gretchen is talking. I just remember, I think she was talking Vietnamese.
That's what I was saying.
And then but the other girls were talking Korean, I think. Or was it Vietnamese too?
I think it was Vietnamese.
But anyways, they had no idea what she was saying.
Yeah.
It was the funniest
it was
thing.
just like, it was the ending was full circle.
Yeah.
So now, after kind of like, that was a long recap of the story.
Yeah.
But let's kind of take a deeper look. There was some pretty interesting underlying themes and going on in this movie. What was one that really caught your attention?
I mean, let's just do about the most recent one. Obviously, the plastic thing.
The tiara?
Yeah, I hadn't caught on to it. I mean, mind you, when I first watched it, I was in elementary school, so I wasn't paying attention at all to the story. The second time I watched it was because it was becoming really popular and everybody started talking about it. So again, I was looking for the jokes, not the storyline. So now when I'm really looking into it, I realized that the plastic tiara that she was alluding to was actually talking about the plastics in general.
Yeah.
And it was kind of interesting analogy because she even said this little thing that all of us are trying to fight for, it's just plastic and it's easily breakable. And so she realizes that the idea of breaking the plastics isn't that it's not breaking it's about breaking off from the plastics basically, and showing that everybody can be a part of any kind of clique. And I thought that was kind of interesting to do.
And it's funny because a tiara, what does that represent? Kind of like the highest part of society, the queen, the princess, the very top. And the fact that it was plastic, it kind of made me think of the plastic groups themselves, because they were the top of the school, right?
Yeah.
In the social hierarchy. And I think the way they executed how it was a plastic tiara and kind of giving it to everyone, because everyone is beautiful. That's what Katie Heron says. Everyone looks beautiful tonight. And that was a really cool symbol.
Yeah. What about you? What do you think really stood out to you?
Okay, one thing that stood out to me that I didn't really realize the first couple times I watched this movie was Janice Ian. I think, I think she was just as bad as Regina, in a sense where, let's start from the beginning. She takes Katie, says that she'll take her to a classroom, and ends up having Katie skip class, and Katie doesn't know any better, and kind of says, "We're your friends. Why would we get you in trouble?" But she could get in trouble for this. And then after that, she's calls Katie Caddy, and Katie corrects her. "Oh, it's Katie," and Janice says, "I'm gonna call you Caddy." And then just uses her Katie's situation for her own benefit. And I'm just this doesn't seem like a healthy friendship.
Okay, so going to the whole Katie Caddy thing, do you think that maybe her calling her Caddy is just kind of a nickname?
But if Katie herself says, "Oh, it's Katie," then you would think you would respect that. And they just met each other. They're not on close terms where they can nickname each other like that.
That's true.
So it kind of just showed me that Janice didn't care. She only started caring about Katie really when she realized, oh, this is my a way I can get into Regina George's mind and blackmail her and everything.
Because I'm also thinking about that time right when you said that was the first, I think the second time she called Katie was when she was really mad at her.
Yeah, there's 2 times when Janice calls Katie.
Yeah.
And the first time is when after the party, like where the Janice fallout happens, and she's like, "No, Katie, you are plastic." You know, like she doesn't call her Caddy. So in her anger, she called Katie.
So, but do you think then at that point Caddy would be the nickname, right? Because at that point it shows that they're no longer friends because she's calling her by her real name.
That is a good point. Like I didn't think about that, but still, like just the principle of it, kind of like it, because it could also come off as like I'm making fun of you, like like so she decided herself that she'll call her, like Janice would call Katie that, and then the second time in the movie is when she is selling Katie out to Regina in the group therapy, and
right.
So you guys all know my new friend Katie, right?
Yeah.
And that's when she calls her name correctly. So, like, I don't know if Janice had good intentions, but I feel like she gets overlooked because of, the plastics and the whole storyline. But you guys tell me, what do you guys think of Janice Ian?
I'm impartial to it, I think. Because I think, like, in the beginning, in the way beginnings, I think they just wanted to be friends with Katie. Because you even think about it, right? Like, they had no reason to talk to her, but they talked to her anyways. And I think the fact that Katie was introduced into the plastics was her just, like, icing on the top for them. It was like, oh, yes, perfect. It's definitely, like, my way to ruin Regina's life. And, my friend is going to help me with it. But I understand what you mean. Like, she's one of those friends, I think, that are just going to, like, be there to use you.
Yeah, and I don't think that's a start to any good friendship. So the fact that we see them, all as friends and that, they reconcile at the spring fling, like, maybe it's a way for both of them to be better friends to each other. Not just Katie, but, Janice as well, to become real friends.
Yeah, I think, if anything, this has probably make them closer, and then they'll probably, like, be more respectful of each other, like, going forward.
Yeah.
So.
It's just, like, something I never picked up the first couple times. But what was another thing that caught your eye?
Honestly, there's not really much, like, symbology going on here. I think everything is pretty straightforward. I do want to say some fun facts, though, because I do find some of them funny. So, obviously, I've talked about the Broadway musical that just really got released in 2018. Did you know that the lead actress playing Regina George never watched Mean Girls?
Insert cricket sounds here.
She, this isn't entirely, I don't know for sure if she's never watched Mean Girls. She could have just not watched it in a while. But I remember in an interview, she was saying that, like, she doesn't want to, like, actually listen to any of the quotes because she doesn't want to get, what did she say? She said something about, like, she doesn't want to have, like, a preconceived notion of how Regina George would actually say it. She wants to have her own interpretation for it. So
I'm more impressed by the fact that she hasn't watched it, and she's probably like, what, 20?
Yeah, she's actually, I think, like,
older.
Yeah, she's like, I think, like 30
so
or
it's
something.
Like, I'm surprised that she hasn't come across or like hasn't watched this yet.
Yeah, but if you guys haven't watched the Mean Girls musical, it's on YouTube. You can probably find it. It's the best thing in the world because they put titles on YouTube to make sure that they don't like block it or like take it down or whatever. So it'll be like, was it like the best DIY slime tutorial you'll ever see, and the thumbnail is like blatantly obvious, the Mean Girls musical. Look it up if you have time. Like if you can find it, it's the best thing in the world. 2 hours of your time.
I can only imagine. Going back to the film, though, one thing that I kind of realized was this movie kind of plays on the power of rumors.
Yeah.
You know? Like, first of all, like you hear it when Damien and Janice introduce the plastics. And then in, like the Burn book, like there's all these rumors. And it's just... some of them, are just so crazy. Like when Regina gets introduced and there's like those cut interviews, like, oh, I heard her hair's insured for $10,000. Oh, I heard she was in a commercial in Japan.
Yeah.
Like these are just crazy rumors, but it kind of goes to show that rumors are pretty powerful.
And this is before the age of the social medias.
Right.
So how do you think rumors, like, how do you think this plot would play out if it was taking place in today's society?
I feel like it would probably like be I can totally see like a selfie on Instagram and then, like kind of like maybe with like, okay, let's go to Japanese commercial. Let's say she has like maybe Japanese food with her, and then people just kind of make the story around the picture. Like social media is so powerful nowadays that they don't know the full story before they judge a picture, right?
Yeah.
They don't have like, from what you put on there, it doesn't tell the whole story. So a picture is worth 1,000 words, right?
Yeah, but you don't know the full story.
Exactly. And then another cool thing about this movie that I just realized again was how full circle it is.
Yeah.
Because in the very beginning, Katie almost gets hit by the yellow bus, and then she mentions the yellow bus again when it was when she saw Aaron for the first time.
Yeah.
She said, and I quote, "Hit me like a yellow school bus."
I'm just wondering, like, there must be some other symbology behind the yellow school bus because, like, I mean, like, it plays out in the most serious times as well. So it's like the first time we see Katie going to school, and then she alludes to the school bus when she's meeting Aaron. Regina George gets hit by a bus, and at the very end, the very, very end, the new wave of plastics get hit by a bus. So
almost get hit by a bus.
So, like, it really does come full circle, but I'm just wondering what specifically does the school bus represent?
Right.
Or if it's just a common joke that, like, you know.
Yeah, like, is that just inserted to be, like, you know, the way to take care of the plastics?
Yeah.
But for our listeners, like, what do you guys think about the yellow school bus?
Yeah. I mean, I think, like, we're probably just reading too much into this. Like, there's probably no symbology behind it, but it is something to think about.
But it's pretty interesting. And another thing that came full circle is when, you know, in the beginning of the movie, she sat in the bathroom
by herself.
Eating her lunch, and then at the end, she did that again.
Yeah. When she was, like, finally seeing her demise as a plastic.
Yeah, so it's just crazy, like, you know, like, she was the new kid, she ate lunch alone, and then after, like, her fall from grace, she sat by herself in the bathroom.
Yeah. I don't know, I could be wrong, and I could just be, like, kind of, like, misinterpreting things in my mind, but I thought there was, like, one part, I forget who would have said it, but it was, like, saying, like, you know, you have all this power, or something like this. It was, like, you have all this power, right? But it's, like, you're gonna be lonely at the top or something like that. It probably was not even said in the movie. But I'm just thinking, right, like, it's, like, you start off with nobody, you have nobody. Now you start off with everybody. Oh, it's probably what Janice was saying about how, like, in actuality, everybody hates you guys.
Yeah. You think everyone likes you, but everyone actually hates you.
Yeah, so this is I think that was the moment that she realized that everybody does, in fact, hate her. So I think, like, going back to that, it's a really powerful thing where you think about it. It's like, you know, it's like almost like karma in a way. Yeah. Like, you want to be popular, like, treat people with respect.
Like, being popular for the good things.
Yeah.
And then another really interesting thing was when Aaron Samuels mentioned at the end when Miss Norberry was being interrogated, when he said, you know, that was made by some girls who were bored, and Katie is narrating saying, to suck out the poison, you have to, or like to handle the poison, you have to suck it out. And
so that's what she did.
So she did that by admitting to her wrongs. And I thought that was really interesting because nowadays, like, you know, Katie referred, like, to poison as what kind of, like, grew from her relationship with the plastics and everything. But now the common term we use is toxic, when people are toxic in our lives, or when it's a toxic friendship, it's a toxic relationship. It's kind of alluding, like, who would have thought that, you know, like, in 2004, using the word poison. Yeah. And then now we're, like, 14 years later.
So I guess that kind of brings us to one of the questions that we've asked in the beginning. How do you think the movie holds up nowadays? Like, if this movie were to take place right now, do you think this entire movie could translate properly into current times?
Like, if it was released this year.
Yeah, if it was released in 2018, do you think it would, like, hold up? Do you think it'd be as popular as it would be? Do you think basically anything? How successful do you think it would be?
You know, like, it was funny, it was entertaining, and, you know, like we mentioned, like, all these things about the movie, it was really good. I feel like it would do pretty well. Like, I don't know how it would do with, like, Generation Zers who don't know what it was like before, like, you know, phones and everything, but I I think the idea of it would hold up well.
Yeah. I'm also thinking, like, based off of, like, generational gaps and everything, I think Generation Z is actually a little bit more liberal in the sense that there's not as many cliques I'm noticing.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's cliques in the sense, like, that you have your friends group, but it's not determined by any kind of stereotype. It's just, like, a friends group you have. And a lot of times, like, even us when we were in high school, we flipped through cliques all the time.
We were, like, and I guess the term was called a floater.
Yeah.
And then if you were a floater, like, it was kind of like, oh, like, why are you hanging out with them more? Or, you know, it's like, why don't you just hang out with us?
Yeah. So I feel like in this sense, like, I'm pretty sure, like, Mean Girls, if it came out, like, at this year, not including, like, the new technologies and everything, if it came out this year, I don't know how well it would hold up.
But I think, like, all kind of, like social hierarchies do have some kind of clique or stereotype. Like, it may not be as prevalent now or, like, cookie cutter defined, but I feel like there are still, like,
I guess, like, everybody's gonna, like, gravitate to certain things that they like.
Yeah, and of course, like, you hang out with people who are like you.
Yeah.
And who are interested in, like, what you are. But what do you think? Would it hold up in today's culture?
I think that if the entire storyline stayed the same, I feel like it could probably stay. I think the reason it was so popular, though, was because it got released really, like way back then, and now it's kind of like a callback. I think it's a callback, but also, like, it's a very quotable movie.
Yeah, so quotable. And, like, the lessons you kind of learn are, like, I think important for high school. You know, like, we were, like, 4th grade, like I said, when this movie came out. So we could not relate to kind of much here.
Most of the jokes went right over my head. I had no idea what was happening. I watched it with my family, too. And, like, everybody was laughing. I was the only person who had no idea what was going on. So that just kind of shows you how young we are.
Okay, now moving on to the second question. Do we still like it?
Oh, I still love it. This is, like, a classic.
It's a absolute classic. Like, all the messages, and one that, you know, I kind of wanted to bring up that I forgot about was, like, in the group therapy when Miss Norberry says, don't call each other sluts or whores. It only makes it okay for guys to call you that.
Yes.
And, you know, I think that's really important for girls who are going into high school and in high school. Like, we shouldn't be, like, cutting each other down. Like, let's just build it, like, let's build not just girls, but let's build all, like, each other up.
Yeah.
But I do feel like when girls say it, because we use it so loosely, and, like, if guys hear, like, you know, girls call it, then, you know, like, they might think it's okay, but if anything, it kind of hurts more when it comes from a guy. I feel.
I think it's because, like, girls can, I don't want to say, like, relate to each other, but, like, they say it to each other because they kind of idealize, like, the definitions of what they're trying to give to each other. But coming from a guy's perspective, they don't really know what you mean by when you say you're calling them a slut and a whore. It's like girls calling each other that could have a totally different definition.
We could be kidding, like, whatever, but yeah, like, as a girl, it does kind of hurt more when it comes from a guy.
Yeah, and this could be said about everything, right? It's like, if you want people to call you something, then call yourself that in the same way. Like, turn it into a positive, right? Like, if you want to be known as confident, then act confident.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like, whatever you say to anybody, just know that there's going to be consequences for whatever you say.
And that's what this movie's about.
Yeah.
And yeah, so, like, there's just so much things about this movie, like, from the quotable lines, the messages, the whole idea.
Yeah.
It will, I think, remain a favorite or remain iconic for a while to come.
Do you think generations, like, after Generation Z, Generation Alpha would be watching this movie?
And everyone, we did not make up Generation Alpha. I kind of saw that on a article.
Something like that.
But I don't, you know, I think it's interesting because I feel like these people, or, like, the next generation after that would be like, why didn't they just, they wouldn't be able to understand the concept of not having phones or texting. Because if you look at us, like, it's hard for me to watch movies from the 60s, 70s.
Yeah.
Even the 80s, like, it feels dated to me.
Yeah.
So even though this is, like, I would say, like, a classic, I don't know if the future generations will be able to kind of, like, watch watch this and seeing like there's not like a lot of technology going on here.
Yeah. Do you think it's just the technology, the lack of technology that's going to set them back, or do you think it's like the morals of the story as well?
Do you think they would be able to relate?
I don't know. I feel like they could be. Like I look at like a lot of the movies that my parents watched growing up too. I can't name any examples off the top of my head, but I just think about it. I'm like, like we can't relate to the technology obviously, but like the morals itself, I think are definitely something that I could still relate to, growing up
like
and everything.
the message of the movie.
Yeah.
And like, I mean, we still laugh at like these movies, right?
Yeah. I mean, you even look at like movies like The Breakfast Club, right? And it's like,
yes.
It came out, I think, before we were born.
Yes.
And we still all watched it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it was a classic movie for everybody. And we all grew up past the time of like them going into detention on Saturdays, which is not a thing anymore. So, I think the technology is definitely a setback, but I think the morals would still stay the same.
Mm-hmm. And, I think this is a great movie for kids who are going into middle school or who are, like I said, in high school now. Like, it's a good movie to watch. Like, even like on a Friday night, like with your girlfriends, your guy friends, whatever.
Yeah.
Not only is there stuff that you can learn from it, it's just so funny. Yeah,
it's a fun movie. Like, honestly, if you don't have a good time watching this movie at any part in it, you're not human.
Yeah.
It's really funny.
Do you think some people might consider it stupid, though?
Yeah, probably. I mean, I'm sure our parents thought it was stupid.
Yeah.
But I think, we were talking about this yesterday too, but I always thought it was funny because when we said like when it first came out, I had no idea any of the references. Mm-hmm. But like watching it now, I'm like, I can relate to everything that the plastics were saying about like body shaming themselves and everything like that. It's like everything we've probably said at one point in our lives.
Yeah.
So it's the funniest thing in the world now looking back at it. It's like, we don't like the plastics, but we're empathetic towards the plastics.
Yes.
Because we understand them.
So I guess both agreed that we like it.
Yeah.
I definitely think that my future children will watch this.
And we're going to force them to.
Yeah. I want to see how far this movie goes.
Yeah. I'm sure it's probably going to be. I mean, how well did it do in the beginning? I guess it's a separate question, We don't have to bring that up.
Well, everyone, so I guess it looks like we're out of time.
Yep. And this wraps up our first installment
of our new series, Tea with Honey.
Yeah, with Michelle and Austin. So if you guys have any questions that you guys want to bring up in future topics, please let us know.
Any movies you want us to recommend?
Yeah, we're thinking about doing themes for some months, like possibly like Disney movies or...
We're very excited.
Yeah.
And just leave some reviews on what you thought about this. Like, how did it go?
Yeah. Like, let us know if you think the formatting is bad, if it was great, what'd you think about it. If you are in high school now, or when you were in high school, what clique did you think you belonged to? Mm-hmm. That'd be kind of fun.
Yeah, let's find out, like, because I want to see if people from, like, almost, like, all types of cliques, like, could relate to this and watched it.
Yeah.
If anything, reach out to us on Twitter or Instagram at _ to be or not to be.
Yep.
And our YouTube and SoundCloud.
To be or not to be.
To be or not to be. Don't forget to like, subscribe,
comment, rate, all that good stuff.
All that good stuff.
Yeah, I guess that's it.
Okay, guys. So we'll see you on the next pod.
Bye, guys.
Bye. To Be or Not to Be was directed, produced, and hosted by Michelle Felipe and Austin Chun. Special thanks to our friend Simon for letting us use his office. Music by Joakim, Karud, and you can find him on SoundCloud, Facebook, YouTube, Spotify, Twitter, and iTunes. Licensed under the Creative Commons Attribution 3.0 Unported Share Alike license.
You can find us at To Be or Not to Be, one word, on Instagram and Twitter. And make sure to subscribe and like us on YouTube and SoundCloud.